Exotic fish and coral. Exotic fish and coral. At age 13, that's how Graham was making money, by taking pictures of exotic fish and coral and getting paid $1 for each picture that he uploaded to the Exotic Fish and Coral Distribution Company's website. And a little over 10 years later, he reached a net worth of over $1 million by age 26.
By the age of 26, I was worth over $1 million.
But it definitely wasn't from continuing his fish and coral photography business. See, contrary to popular belief, most people in the middle class and even in the lower class will have earned more than $1 million in their lifetime before they die. But getting to $1 million in net worth by age 26 when most people have barely gotten out of school, that is pretty impressive, and it doesn't happen by accident. And just 3 years later, at 29 years old, he's at a net worth of over $6 million. And the story of how he got there? It's a story of drama, of betrayal, of backstabbing, of scamming his way to millions. It was actually as honest of money as you can make, and pretty realistic for anyone else to accomplish, including you. So enough of the theatrics. This is how Graham Stephan became the $6 million millennial, with all the juicy specifics that you could ever ask for. Throughout history, there has been one industry that has always stood the test of time. It's been around since man first started settling down together in the agricultural revolution, and where other industries have come and gone, this one has grown with every single industrial revolution. And no matter how advanced civilization gets, this business will always be here. I'm talking, of course, about real estate, and this is the path that Graham chose to make his millions. Now, when I first started learning about real estate, people kept saying how real estate has made more millionaires than any other industry, but they never seemed to explain why. Put simply, where other businesses come and go on what seems like a daily basis these days, no matter what happens, people will always need a place to live. Or in other words, real estate will always have intrinsic value to us, will always need shelter. And because of that, real estate has a few key benefits that not many other industries have, and that Graham used to really accelerate his way to millionaire status.
The signs were everywhere, but now it's official, we are in a recession.
If you are watching us from the last home you'll ever own tonight, consider yourself lucky. But if you're among the millions trying to sell, this was a very bad day. The National Association of Realtors reported the worst month-to-month drop in existing home sales since they started keeping track in the late 90s.
By 2011, the stock market had already crashed 3 years earlier and was on the way back up. But real estate, on the other hand, was still crashing, just at a slower rate, and was practically at the very bottom before it would start to climb back up. At that time, you were seeing homes that were worth $1 million just a few years back or today sell for only $500,000. That was already a smoking deal to get a home for half of what it was actually worth. But for the area Graham was looking at, it was even better.
Now, in San Bernardino, a lot of people lost their homes. This is an area that just boomed in 2004, 5, and 6 and got hit really, really hard when people started losing their jobs and the stock market crashed and everything in 2009. And I saw it as just like a massive overcorrection. I didn't think the market should have been as high as it was, but I didn't think it should have dropped as low as it did. So when it dropped that low, I thought this is just a major correction. This is just gonna be temporary. Now is a good time to buy. But at the same time, people were renting because nobody was buying. The people that lost their homes couldn't afford to buy another house. And a lot of the people that could buy homes just weren't buying because they were afraid of the market. And I figured, you know what, I can buy a property and just rent it out. These are properties, by the way, in San Bernardino that were selling like $250,000, sometimes to $350,000, that were now selling for 60, 70 grand.
At the time, Graham was living in LA and San Bernardino was around an hour away. And he knew that these prices were just too good to pass up, so this is what he did.
I would make an offer, sight unseen, cash, for every property that came on the market that fit my certain criteria. And this was my criteria.
So at 21 years old, after going through hundreds and hundreds of potential properties, Graham bought his first rental property for a mere $60,000 in cash, practically a fourth of what it was really worth.
So I go in and I realize in this house, it's owned by a drug-addicted hoarder. I can't even make this up, but there were like needles everywhere. She must have had like 5 years worth of trash, just items of everything just piled up.
After it was all said and done, he was making around $1,200 passively every single month just from the tenant paying rent. With just this property alone, it's worth around $250,000 to $280,000 today, around 3 to 4 times the money he put into it. With just this property alone, his net worth today would be at least $250,000, or another way to put it is that he would be at least a quarter of a millionaire today. But as you may have guessed, Graham did not stop there. Not too long after moving into 2012, he got 2 more properties in the same area with a similar discount and similar numbers.
So in 2011, 2012, I bought 3 properties. It was 2 houses and a triplex.
And with just these 3 properties alone, Graham was probably bringing in roughly $3,000 to $4,000 in cash every single month just from the rental income. And if he stopped there, he would probably have reached at least $1 million in net worth today, making him a $1 million millennial. But he's not just a $1 million millennial, he's a $6 million millennial. And after buying property number 4 in 2016 in West LA, and property number 5, which was a duplex 2 years ago in 2017, and property number 6, which was another duplex a year ago in 2018, that brings him to today with an estimated net worth of $6 million by the age of 29.
And now in 2019, after paying all the mortgages and property taxes and insurance and repairs and everything else that comes along with that, I am netting every single month about $4,800 in net profits in my pocket, in my bank account, every single month.
And when you look at the timeline of Graham's journey from this perspective, it's actually not that complicated. He bought 6 properties starting from when the housing market was at the very bottom after the Great Recession, and since purchasing them, they've all gone up in value over the years to where he owns around $4 million in real estate after you account for how much money he still owes to the banks. And with the money he has in cash and other investments, his net worth is around $6 million. But it's not the whole picture. We know that real estate has stood the test of time, but why? Why did Graham feel so confident in real estate that he was literally throwing all of his money into it for 8 years straight and still to this day?
The attractive home of John and Margaret Bryant, the home they've always dreamed of, the happiest investment they have ever made. At last, the Bryants have all the space they need.
Since people always need a place to live and the population keeps growing, or in other words, the demand keeps rising, real estate typically goes up in value over time. Meaning just like what happened to Graham, if you buy a house today in a decent area, a few years later, even 1 year later, it will typically be worth more money than what you paid for without you really having to do anything. But appreciation isn't anything special. After all, the stock market typically goes up in value over time as well. But Graham still chose this over stocks. Why? It's because of the next few reasons that really put real estate on a whole other playing field compared to other investments like stocks. Because homes are usually a pretty safe bet because people just live in them, and it's pretty hard for a home not to be useful because someone can always live in it and get value out of it. This makes it practically infinitely easier to borrow money to buy a house more than something like stocks. To put this into perspective, in real estate, you can own a $500,000 house with as little as $25,000 in cash to put down on the loan. Whereas in the stock market, to control $500,000 in stocks and therefore make money when the stocks go up in value or not, you typically have to have at least $250,000 or 50% in cash to put down. Meaning you have to have 10 times more money in cash compared to real estate to own the same amount of money in stocks. This makes real estate so much easier to get started in, and it's so much easier to make more money at the same time because of a fancy term called leverage. This is where, like in our scenario, if you had $25,000, you could either own a $500,000 home because real estate gives you more leverage, or you could own just $50,000 in stocks. And in this scenario, if after 1 year, if the home went up just 4% in value, you made almost all of your money back, or $20,000, with only having to have $25,000 in cash to start. Where if you leveraged your money to get $50,000 in stocks, even if the stocks grew twice as fast at the home at 8% after 1 year, you only made a measly $4,000 starting with the same amount of money. So you got 5 times more money by just going with real estate over stocks in this scenario. Now typically most people put at least 20% down on a home, but even in that scenario, real estate would still make you more money because real estate offers more leverage. But it doesn't stop there, because even though you still owe the bank the rest of the money for the $500,000 home that you got a loan for, it doesn't come out of your own pocket. You don't even pay the loan to the bank with your own money because the tenant pays for it every month when they pay you rent. So not only are you safely leveraging your money to make more money, someone else is basically paying you to own a home. And any rent money left over after paying the bank every month, that is all sweet cash flow just for you. Or in Graham's case with his first 3 properties, since he bought it all in cash, all of the rent money he gets goes directly to him. Now you're probably thinking to yourself like, well, this is great, Jake, but I don't have any money. How am I supposed to get started in real estate in the first place? Well, that is the last piece of the puzzle, because Graham was in the same situation. For the most part, there are 3 stages a person like Graham goes through in life: learning how to save money, learning how to make money, and learning how to multiply your money. There is no doubt that real estate investing is the main thing that got Graham to become a millionaire, because he was able to multiply his money by putting money into rental properties, and then the money gets multiplied back in the form of cash flow, appreciation, and tax benefits. But by the time the golden opportunity of real estate came around in 2011, if Graham hadn't already learned how to save money and make money leading up to that opportunity, he would not be a millionaire today, because he wouldn't have had enough money saved up to take advantage of all these cheap houses.
It was so important for me to save as much money as I could. I think if I just blew all the money I had when I was like 18, 19, and 20, by the time I was 21, I wouldn't have had anything left over to take advantage of these opportunities. So saving money for me was like a total priority. And even to this day, I save as much money as I can so that when opportunities do come up, you have the money to take advantage of them.
Graham grew up in a household where his parents were living paycheck to paycheck.
You know, when I was 16 years old, both of my parents filed for bankruptcy around the same time, and I remember having 20 bucks and really making that $20 last.
So he was already conditioned to save money and be cheap, be a financial minimalist. So he already knew how to save money. The next piece was learning how to make money, and for that he decided to work as a real estate agent. And the advantage of doing something like this is that since it's all commission based, Graham could control how much money he made. But that also came with the downside of him spending his first 10 months as an 18-year-old making next to nothing before he even got his first sale. And as he started getting into the groove of being an agent, by 2011 when the market was at the very bottom, he was making well over $100,000 a year as a 21-year-old and had $200,000 in cash saved up because he's a financial minimalist. At that point, even though he was making great money, it was so unpredictable to where he could go for months without selling a home.
And the reason why I thought that was because real estate for me, even though I was making decent money at it, it was pretty inconsistent. And I felt very uneasy knowing that I'm only as good as my last deal. And so even though you might make a $50,000 commission, it could be 6 months before you make another one of those. And it was that inconsistency that really made me feel nervous, knowing that I don't know when my next paycheck is going to be, and I don't know how much that paycheck is going to be for.
And it was this uncertainty in his income that motivated him to get into real estate investing in the first place. He started out with an occupation where he was able to make a ton of money in a short period of time and control his income, but even with a super high income, it's still really hard to get to millionaire status by age 26. So he needed what's known as leverage. So instead of spending all of that money, he dumped it into a medium that can multiply that money, i.e. rental properties. Repeat this process of selling real estate as an agent and funneling all of that money into more and more rental properties, and then fast forward 8 years later with over $120 million sold in real estate and 6 rental properties, and that brings Graham to today, the $6 million millennial. So thank you so much for watching and being part of the Watch to the End Club, you guys. I really enjoy making these videos, so if you enjoy this style of video, please consider subscribing by clicking that big red button down below for more videos like this every single week, and you can turn on that notification bell too so YouTube notifies you whenever I release a new video. But that's gonna wrap it up. You can follow me on Instagram at jaketrend.io. You've been awesome. I've been Jake. I'll see you guys in the next one.